The night my father called me a leech, I did not cry. I did not shout. I did not remind him that the roof over his head, the medicine in my mother's cabinet, and the polished SUV sitting in his driveway had all been paid for with money from my account. I simply reached for the stack of bills in front of him, turned them around, and slid them across the dining table toward my older sister. Perfect, I said. From tonight on, they're all hers. My sister's face went white. My mother stopped breathing for a second. And my father, who had spent the last 10 minutes praising his favorite daughter for sending them $5,000 every month, finally looked at her closely. That silence was the first honest thing my family had given me in years. My name is Claire Bennett. I was 31 years old, living in Nashville, Tennessee, and working as a senior payroll analyst for a regional hospital network. I understood money. I understood where it came from, where it went, and how quickly small lies became expensive systems. What I did not understand was how my own family had turned me into a bank account and convinced themselves I was the selfish one. It began 6 years earlier, after my father lost his construction management job. Dad had always been proud of being the provider. He was the kind of man who paid restaurant checks before anyone else could reach for them. He fixed neighbors' fences without charging. He believed asking for help was weakness, especially when the person helping was one of his daughters. My mother, Elaine, worked part-time at a dental office, but her income was not enough to cover their mortgage, insurance, utilities, and the medical bills from her knee surgery. At first, they hid the problem. Then one Sunday afternoon, I found Mom crying in the laundry room with a past due notice folded inside a towel. Their mortgage was 2 months behind. Dad had been pretending everything was fine. I had some savings. Not much, but enough to stop the bank from beginning foreclosure proceedings. I can cover it, I told them. Dad refused. Mom cried harder. My older sister, Vanessa, sat at the kitchen island scrolling through her phone. Vanessa was 4 years older than me and had always been treated like the successful one. She had married a real estate agent named Brent, wore expensive clothes, drove a leased luxury car, and posted photographs from restaurants where one dinner cost more than my weekly grocery budget. She looked rich. That mattered more to my parents than whether she actually was. I was the practical daughter. I drove a 7-year-old Honda, packed my lunch, and worked late. Vanessa was the impressive daughter. She had perfect hair, a large social media following, and a talent for making every ordinary event look important. When Dad refused my money, Vanessa finally looked up from her phone. "Send it through me," she said. I frowned. "Why?" "Because Dad won't take it from you. He'll feel like he failed. And he won't feel that way taking it from you." Vanessa smiled. "Dad sees me differently." She was right. That should have been my first warning. I transferred $12,000 into Vanessa's account. She sent it to my parents the next morning and told them she had handled the mortgage problem. I thought she meant she had handled the transfer. My parents thought she meant she had paid it. When Mom called Vanessa an angel, I waited for my sister to correct her. She did not. Afterward, I confronted her in the driveway. "You let them believe that was your money." Vanessa unlocked her car and shrugged. "They needed help. They got help. That isn't the point." "Claire, do you want Dad to feel humiliated?" "No." "Then let him keep his pride." I told myself she was right. That was the first lie I helped protect. The next month, Dad still had not found work. Their savings were gone. Mom's physical therapy bills kept arriving. I sent another $4,000 through Vanessa. Then $5,000 the month after that. When Dad found a lower-paying job, the amount should have decreased. Instead, their spending increased. They replaced the refrigerator. They repaired the deck. They refinanced one vehicle and leased another. Each time, there was a reason. The refrigerator might fail. The deck was unsafe. Dad needed a reliable vehicle for work. The temporary support became a monthly transfer of $5,000. $60,000 a year. I was earning good money, but not enough to give away $60,000 without consequences. I stopped traveling. I delayed replacing my car. I reduced my retirement contributions. I moved into a smaller apartment and told coworkers I preferred minimalism. Every sacrifice had a respectable name. Meanwhile, Vanessa's reputation in the family grew. At Thanksgiving, Dad raised his glass and said, "Some children remember who raised them." Everyone looked at Vanessa. She lowered her eyes with a modest smile. At Christmas, Mom told our relatives that Vanessa sent them $5,000 every month. My aunt touched Vanessa's arm and said, "You are an extraordinary daughter." Vanessa answered, "Family comes first." I nearly dropped my plate. Later, I cornered her in the guest room. "You need to tell them." She closed the door behind us. "Tell them what?" "That the money comes from me." Her expression changed, not to guilt, but irritation. "Why does it matter whose account it starts in?" "Because they think you are supporting them." "I am managing the support." You forward a transfer. I deal with mom's calls. I calm dad down. I make the arrangement work. You take the credit. Vanessa crossed her arms. You agreed to send it through me. I agreed because I thought we were protecting dad's pride. We are. No. We are protecting your image. She stared at me for a moment. Then she said the sentence that kept me silent for another 3 years. If you tell them now, Dad will know you lied to him too. She was right. I had participated. I had allowed the misunderstanding because I wanted to be kind. Now the truth would embarrass my parents and make me look as manipulative as Vanessa. So I kept paying. And Vanessa kept shining. The arrangement became uglier in small steps. Dad began comparing us openly. When I declined a family vacation because I could not afford it, he said, Vanessa manages to enjoy life and still takes care of us. When I mentioned wanting to buy a home, Mom said, a house is a huge responsibility. You should first prove you can be consistent with the family you already have. Consistent. That word meant money. Vanessa, meanwhile, was treated as exempt from every other obligation because everyone believed she was already carrying the largest burden. If Mom needed help after a medical appointment, I drove her. If Dad needed someone to wait for a repair technician, I used a vacation day. If they needed groceries, I bought them. When I asked Vanessa to share those tasks, she would say, you know I'm already helping financially? The money was mine. The labor was mine. The guilt was mine. The praise was hers. I should have stopped it sooner. But family systems do not usually trap you with one chain. They trap you with 1,000 threads, a worried phone call, a disappointed look, a reminder of what your parents sacrificed, a story about loyalty, a joke about selfishness, a promise that next month will be easier. By the time you understand what has happened, the threads have become a rope around your chest. My breaking point began with a credit report. I had finally decided to buy a small townhouse outside Nashville. Nothing luxurious. 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a tiny patio where I imagined drinking coffee before work. I had saved enough for a down payment. At least, I thought I had. The mortgage officer called me on a Tuesday afternoon. There's an issue with your debt-to-income ratio, she said. That doesn't make sense. I have no major debt. She paused. There are 2 revolving accounts and an auto loan connected to your social security number. I went cold. I don't have an auto loan. She read the last 4 digits of the account. The loan was for a black Lexus SUV. My father's Lexus. I had co-signed paperwork years earlier when Dad's credit was weak, but he had promised the account would be refinanced within 6 months. It never was. The 2 credit cards were worse. One had been opened in my name with my parents' address. The other listed Vanessa as an authorized user. Together, they carried nearly $38,000 in debt. I sat in my office staring at the wall while hospital employees moved past the glass outside. I had not opened those cards. I had not signed those applications. Someone had used my information. That evening, I drove to my parents' house without calling. Dad was watching television. Mom was arranging flowers on the kitchen counter. Vanessa happened to be there, drinking white wine. I placed the credit report on the table. What is this? Dad muted the television but did not stand. Mom glanced at the pages. It's probably a mistake. It lists your address. Vanessa's wine glass stopped halfway to her mouth. I looked at her. She recovered quickly. Identity theft happens all the time. Yes, I said. Dad finally came to the table. You're making this sound criminal. It may be criminal. Mom's face tightened. Do not use that word in this house. Someone opened credit cards in my name. Dad tapped the paper. Those cards paid for family expenses. If for a second, I could not speak. You knew. He sighed like I was exhausting him. We were going to tell you. When? When the balances were lower. I turned to Vanessa. Did you know? She looked at Mom. That was my answer. I asked who had applied for the cards. Nobody spoke. Then Mom said, Vanessa helped me fill out some online forms, but we all benefited. I laughed. It came out sharp and unfamiliar. We all benefited. The cards covered your father's dental work, the new air conditioning system, and several emergencies, and the charges from a resort in Miami. Vanessa's face changed. Dad looked at her. What resort? I opened the detailed report on my phone. $3,800 at the Marlin Bay Resort. $900 at a spa. $2,000 at a boutique. A mom whispered. Vanessa. Vanessa set down her glass. That was temporary. Brent and I had cash flow issues. You used a credit card opened in my name. I plan to pay it back. With what? She stood. You are acting like I stole from a stranger. You stole from me. Dad slammed his hand against the table. Nuff. This family does not speak to each other that way. I stared at him. Someone used my identity, put $38,000 in my name, and damaged my chance to buy a home. How should I speak? He pointed toward the living room. You need to calm down. That was when I understood that truth alone would not save me. My family had already agreed on the roles. Vanessa was the generous daughter. I was the difficult daughter. Any fact that challenged those roles would be bent until it fit. So I stopped arguing. I took photographs of every document I could find. I asked Mom for the login information to the cards. She refused. The next day, I called the banks. I froze my credit. I requested complete account histories. I changed every password connected to my finances. Then I made an appointment with an attorney named Julia Moreno. Julia was in her early 50s, calm and direct, with reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She reviewed the statements in silence. "This is identity theft," she said. The words sounded heavier in her office than they had in my parents' kitchen. "I don't want my mother arrested." Julia folded her hands. "Then you need to understand your options clearly. Protecting them from consequences may leave you responsible for the debt." I looked down. "They'll say I destroyed the family. They may say that no matter what you do." That sentence stayed with me. Julia advised me to gather evidence before confronting anyone again, so I investigated. For years, my work had required tracing payroll errors across thousands of transactions. I knew how to follow dates, amounts, and account numbers. I downloaded every transfer I had sent to Vanessa. $5,000 on the first business day of each month. Then I compared those records with the deposits my parents had received. Most months, Vanessa forwarded the full amount, but not every month. Some months, she sent only $4,500. Other months, $4,000. Twice, she sent nothing for more than 3 weeks, then made a late transfer after my parents called me asking whether there had been a bank problem. Over 6 years, Vanessa had quietly kept more than $27,000. That was not including the credit card charges. I felt sick. The secret was bigger than stolen praise. My sister had been taking a fee from my sacrifice. I searched further. The new air conditioning system my parents said cost $14,000 had actually cost $9,000. The difference had been charged to the card in my name and transferred to an online payment account belonging to Vanessa. The resort trip had happened during the same week. She told us she was attending a real estate conference. Even the monthly story was false in another way. My parents believed Vanessa sent exactly $5,000. She had been sending less, and telling them bank fees or automatic deductions explained the difference. They had never checked because they trusted her, and they had never thanked me because they did not know I existed inside the arrangement. I printed everything, not just a few statements. Every transfer, every missing amount, every credit card charge, every message in which Vanessa asked whether my payment would arrive on time. Placed the documents in a thick black binder. Then I made 3 decisions. First, I disputed the fraudulent cards formally. Second, I removed myself from the Lexus loan by forcing a refinance deadline through my attorney. Third, I canceled the monthly transfer. I did not warn anyone. The first day a month came and went. At 8:12 the next morning, Vanessa called. I let it ring. At 8:14, she called again. Then she texted, "Did you forget the transfer?" I did not answer. 10 minutes later, Mom and Dad have bills due. This is not the time to make a point. Still, I said nothing. By noon, Dad called. "Your sister says there's an issue at the bank." "There is no issue." "Then fix it." I canceled the transfer. Silence. "You did what?" "I canceled it." "Why?" "Because I'm no longer funding a system built on fraud." His voice turned hard. "Come to dinner Sunday. We will discuss this as a family." I almost refused. Then I looked at the black binder on my desk. "All right," I said. Sunday. That dinner was staged like a trial. Dad sat at the head of the table. Mom sat on his right. Vanessa sat on his left, wearing a cream blouse and the expression of someone preparing to look reasonable. Brent was not there. The stack of household bills had been placed in front of my empty chair. Electricity, gas, internet, the Lexus payment, 2 credit card minimums, property taxes, a medical balance. There was also a handwritten list totaling $7,486. I sat down but did not touch it. Dad began. "Your behavior this week has been cruel." I opened my purse and placed the black binder on the floor beside me. "My behavior. You stopped supporting this household without warning. I stopped sending money to Vanessa." "Which is the same thing." "No, it isn't." Mom leaned toward me. "Claire, we understand you may feel overlooked sometimes, but punishing us is childish." Vanessa nodded slowly, like a counselor. "This could have been handled privately." I looked at her. It was private for 6 years. Dad lifted one of the bills. "Your sister has us $5,000 every month without complaint. She has never demanded applause. She has never threatened us. She understands gratitude." Vanessa looked down modestly. "The performance was almost beautiful." Dad continued. "You, on the other hand, live alone, spend money on yourself, and appear only when you want recognition." I felt something inside me become very still. Dad, have you ever seen where Vanessa's $5,000 comes from? His face darkened. I will not tolerate jealousy. It is a simple question. Would trust her. Have you seen one pay stub? One account statement? One transfer beginning with her money? Mom looked offended. Families do not audit each other. I glanced at the pile of bills. You seem comfortable auditing me. Dad pushed the bills closer. You have benefited from this family your entire life. We fed you. We housed you. We educated you. And now, when we need basic help, you behave like a leech. The room went quiet. There it was, the word. Leech. Vanessa did not defend me. She did not look surprised. She sat beside our father and allowed him to say it, because his cruelty protected her story. I reached for the stack of bills. Dad leaned back, believing I had surrendered. I straightened the envelopes carefully. Then I slid the entire stack across the polished table until it stopped in front of Vanessa. Perfect, I said. From tonight on, they're all hers. Vanessa's face went white. Mom's lips parted. Dad frowned. Vanessa pushed the bills back an inch. That's not what I meant. I raised my eyebrows. You send them $5,000 every month. These should be easy. I have my own obligations. So do I? Dad turned toward her. What is she talking about? Vanessa looked at me with naked panic. Claire is upset. She wants to embarrass me. I reached down and lifted the binder onto the table. No, I want to correct the accounting. I opened to the first section. 6 years of transfers from my checking account to Vanessa. Each page showed the same amount. $5,000. Month after month, year after year. Dad stared at the pages. Mom moved closer. Vanessa stood. This proves nothing. You were contributing too. Turn the page, Dad did. The second section showed Vanessa forwarding the money to my parents. The dates matched. The amounts almost matched. Almost, Mom noticed first. Why is this one only $4,500? Vanessa sat down again. Bank fees, I opened the third section. There were no bank fees. The pages listed every amount Vanessa had kept. 500, 1,000, 3,000, 750, $27,400 in total. Dad's face changed. He looked at Vanessa. Did you keep this money? She swallowed. I managed everything. I spent hours dealing with bills and calls. I thought a small amount was fair. Mom whispered. You told us the bank deducted it. It was complicated. I turned to another tab. It gets less complicated. I placed the credit card statements beside Dad's plate. The Miami resort, the spa, the boutique, the payment transfers, the false air conditioning total. Dad read in silence. Mom began shaking her head. Vanessa's voice rose. Claire invaded my privacy. You used my identity. That card was for family emergencies. Was the Ocean View suit an emergency? It was my anniversary. Charged to my name. Dad stood so quickly his chair struck the wall. Vanessa, tell me she is lying. Vanessa looked at him, then at nobody moved. Finally, she said, I was going to replace the money. With what? I asked. The $5,000 you pretended to send. She turned on me. You always hated that they admired me. I almost laughed. No, I hated paying for the admiration. Mom covered her mouth. Dad looked at the binder again, but the truth did not make him humble. It made him angry. Not at Vanessa. At me. You should have told us sooner. I stared at him. I tried. You allowed this lie to continue. So did she. But you knew the money was yours. Less. Then you manipulated us. There it was again. Even after seeing proof that Vanessa had stolen my money and used my identity, he needed me to share the blame equally. I closed the binder. I protected your pride. She exploited it. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Never asked for all this. I looked at the bills in front of Vanessa. You ask every month. We thought it came from her. You still spent it. Dad pointed at me. Do not speak to your mother like that. Why? Because the truth sounds disrespectful when I say it. Vanessa began crying. Real tears this time. I made mistakes. I looked at her. You committed fraud. We are sisters. You remembered that after 6 years. She wiped her face. Please don't report the cards. Mom reached for my hand. I pulled it back. Claire, think about what this could do to Vanessa. I stared at her. Did anyone think about what it did to me? No one answered. I told them the cards had already been disputed. I told Dad the Lexus had to be refinanced within 30 days or returned. I told them the monthly transfer would not resume. Dad's face became red. You cannot abandon your responsibilities. They were never mine. We are your parents. That is a relationship, not a payment contract. He stepped closer. If you walk out now, do not expect to come back when you regret it. I stood and lifted the binder. I have regretted staying silent for years. Mom whispered my name. Vanessa stared at the bills. Dad stood rigid at the head of the table, surrounded by proof he did not want. I walked to the front door. Behind me, he shouted, You are tearing this family apart over money. I turned around one final time. No, Dad. Money only showed me where the cracks already were. Then I left. The revenge did not happen in one dramatic moment. It happened slowly, through consequences. The banks investigated the applications. Because the cards had been opened using my information, without my authorization, the balances were removed from my credit report. The digital application records led directly to my parents' home internet connection and Vanessa's phone number. Julia helped me negotiate a formal agreement. Vanessa had to accept legal responsibility for the personal charges and repay the money she had withheld. My parents had to assume the household expenses charged to the cards. In exchange, I did not push for criminal prosecution. That decision was not forgiveness, it was control. For the first time, the terms were mine. Dad refinanced the Lexus at a much higher interest rate. 2 months later, he sold it. My parents canceled their premium cable package, delayed a kitchen renovation, and listed several unnecessary expenses they had once called basic needs. Vanessa and Brent sold their leased image too. The luxury car disappeared. The weekend trips stopped. Her social media became quiet. Then Brent discovered the credit card statements. He had believed Vanessa was helping my parents with money from a successful investment account. He had also believed the Miami trip was paid for with reward points. Their marriage did not survive the investigation. I did not celebrate the divorce, but I did not accept blame for it either. Truth does not destroy healthy things. It exposes what was already rotting. 3 months after the dinner, I received a message from Mom. We miss you. Your father is still hurt, but we hope you can put this behind you. No apology acknowledgement. Just an invitation to erase the consequences so everyone could feel comfortable again. I did not respond. A week later, Dad called from a number I did not recognize. When I answered, he said, "Your mother's birthday is Sunday." I know. She wants both daughters there. I won't be coming. He was silent. Then he said, "How long are you going to punish us?" I am not punishing you. It feels like punishment. That is because you were comfortable when I had no boundaries. He breathed heavily into the phone. You have changed, I said. I have. For once, I did not say it like an apology. 6 months later, my credit score recovered. The mortgage officer called again. This time, the townhouse application was approved. On closing day, Julia came with me, because I had no family member I trusted enough to invite. The house was small. The kitchen cabinets were plain. The backyard was barely large enough for 2 chairs and a planter. It was perfect. I signed my name on the final page and held the keys in my hand. No hidden loan. No secret card. No one else's bills waiting beside my purse. That evening, I sat on the floor eating takeout because I did not own a dining table yet. The rooms echoed. For years, silence had been used against me. My family's silence had protected lies. My silence had protected people who were hurting me. But in that empty house, silence felt different. It felt clean. A month later, Vanessa came to see me. She stood on the porch wearing jeans and no makeup. I almost did not recognize her. "I'm repaying the first amount next week," she said. I saw the schedule. She looked past me into the house. "It's nice. Thank you." She waited for an invitation inside. I did not give one. Finally, she said, "Dad still blames you." I know. Mom says you could have handled it gently. I handled it gently for 6 years. Vanessa looked down. "I hated that you were the one they actually needed." The honesty surprised me, she continued. "You were always steady. I was just better at looking successful. When the money started passing through me, it felt like I finally had proof that I was who they thought I was. You could have stopped." "I know. You could have told the truth at any time." "I know." I studied her face. For the first time, she did not appear polished or powerful. She looked tired, human, but remorse did not erase damage. "I hope you build a life that does not require stealing someone else's," I said. Her eyes filled. "Will you ever forgive me?" "I don't know." It was the truth. Not every wound needs an immediate lesson. Not every betrayal becomes a beautiful reunion. Sometimes justice is not watching people suffer. Sometimes justice is refusing to suffer for them anymore. Vanessa left. I closed the door. Over the next year, I rebuilt everything I had postponed. My savings, my retirement account, my friendships, my health. I took my first real vacation in 8 years and spent 4 days in Savannah, walking under oak trees without checking my banking app. I bought a dining table. It was round, made of warm wood, and large enough for 4 people. The first dinner I served there was for Julia and 2 coworkers who had become close friends. No one compared sisters. No one discussed obligation. No one placed an envelope beside my plate. Near the end of the evening, Julia raised her glass. "To Claire," she said, "for learning that generosity in the scent is not generosity." I smiled. But later, after everyone left, I thought about the night at my parents' table. My father's voice. The word leech. Vanessa's white face. The bill sliding across the wood. For years, I believed the strongest thing I could do was carry everyone. I was wrong. The strongest thing I ever did was put the weight down where it belonged. My family thought the money had made me useful. Losing access to it taught them the truth. I was never the leech. I was the lifeline. And the night they insulted me was the night I finally let go.